Hello students. So in this video we are going to continue the simple tissues, and in the previous videos we discussed about parenchyma, collenchyma. Now we will jump to the third simple tissue, that is sclerenchyma. And you just remember the basic difference. Parenchyma and collenchyma are living tissues, whereas the sclerenchyma is the dead mechanical tissue. Okay, so let us say the characteristics of this Sclerenchyma. Actually, the meaning of Sclerenchyma itself is it is a hard tissue. Sclerenchyma is a Greek term, and the meaning of that Sclerenchyma is hard tissue. So we can understand that this tissue will provide hardness to the part wherever it is present. Okay. So now the first point, it is a simple tissue. Means what are simple tissues? The simple tissues are a group of similar cells performing a common function. So it is a group of similar cells performing a common function, and it is a dead tissue. Dead tissue means what? Actually, a living cell will contain protoplasm, but here you won't find any protoplasm during maturation. So it loses that protoplasm, and as a result of which the cells become dead. So because of as the cells are dead, so they are able to provide what? This mechanical strength to the plant. So that's why it is called mechanical tissue. Okay, during maturation the cells lose protoplasm and become dead. Okay, and what you will find in the place of protoplasm when they lose protoplasm, so what is left? A cavity, and the cavity is called lumen. The cavity is called lumen, or cell cavity. Okay, and the cell cavity is narrow or highly reduced. The cell cavity is narrow or highly reduced. So remember one that we find such dead cells even in the xylem, and there also you will find a lumen, but those lumens are wide lumens, and because of which water will move through those wide lumens. But here, why the fibers are these Sclerenchyma cells are not allowing the water to move? Because they are very narrow. Okay, so and the cell wall, generally you will find what here we saw in the case of parenchyma only primary cell wall, and even in the collenchyma we saw only primary cell wall. But when we come to sclerenchyma, so the cell wall will show primary cell wall as well as secondary cell wall. Here I wrote PCW, that is what primary cell wall, and SCW, that is what secondary cell wall. And the chemical composition is different. The primary cell wall is made up of cellulose, and even you may find hemicellulose also. Cellulose and hemicellulose will make the primary cell wall, and below that primary cell wall, okay, you will find lignin material. So this lignin, pervious to water. Okay, so not impervious to water. It allows the water. Okay, so that is secondary cell wall. But the thing is that whenever the cells are with lignin material, we call their walls are described as what? Lignified walls. Okay, and the process is called what? Lignification. Okay, and now let us see, and you can see that you find these pits. So simple pits will be there. Simple pits. And of course, this Sclerenchyma is basically classified into two types based on their size or length. Okay, some are long cells and some are short cells. So these long cells are called sclerenchymatous fibers or simply fibers. And whereas the short cells are called scleroids. So the long cells are called sclerenchymatous fibers and the short cells are called scleroids. But was this sclerenchyma is widely distributed in the plant body. That means we find this sclerenchyma at many places in the plant body. Okay, so just like the parenchyma, but the parenchyma is abundant tissue, but sclerenchyma is present here and there. But you will find it everywhere in the plant body, but not in the same quantity. Okay, so the sclerenchymatous fibers, which are long elongated cells with tapering ends, or they are spindle shaped cells, and they are arranged like this. That is, they are intertwined like this and forming a tissue. And based on the place of these fibers, we can recognize two types of fibers. Those that are present in the xylem are called xylem fibers or xylary fibers. And those that are present anywhere other than xylem are called extraxillary fibers. Extraxillary fibers. And these xylem fibers which are present in the xylem are of two types. Libriform fibers, libriform fibers and fiber tracheids. Fiber tracheids. So these libriform fibers are true fibers. True means what? They are actually the sclerenchymatous fibers. And in the xylem, you find some fiber-like cells also, which are actually tracheids, but they are reduced to fibers. Means what? Tracheids are supposed to conduct water, but due to obliterated, means what? Closed lumens. So they will not conduct, and instead they behave like the fibers. That's why they are called fiber tracheids. So these are reduced tracheids. Reduced tracheids. But how to differentiate these libriform and fiber tracheids? Simply with the pits. So you just remember this point. So the sclerenchymatous cells will have what pits? Simple pits. But the tracheids will have bordered pits. These are with bordered pits. These are with simple pits. So that is xylary fibers. And what is the function of these xylary fibers? Xylem is actually water conducting tissue. And the fibers do not conduct water, but then what they will do? They will give strength to the xylem. Okay, so that is what xylary fibers. And now let us see the fibers that are present other than xylem, extraxillary fibers. And when you observe these monocot stems, in the transverse section of the monocot stem, you will find epidermis, and below epidermis, you will find the cortex, and below the cortex, you will find what? The stele, and in the cortex, just immediately below the epidermis, you will find hypodermis, and that hypodermis is made up of fibers. As they are present in the cortex, we call them as what? Cortical fibers. Okay. And remember that monocot stems do not exhibit any secondary growth, but still they are strong. The strength comes from these sclerenchymatous hypodermis. That is what cortical fibers. And now in the pericycle, what is pericycle? Okay, so don't forget the outermost layer of the stele is called pericycle. And that pericycle in dicot stems is composed of okay, Sclerenchymatous fibers. So the pericycle is made up of Sclerenchyma in dicot stems. So that means, don't forget that I am not talking about dicot root. The pericycle in dicot root is living and parenchymatous and is meristematic. And that's why that will produce lateral roots. But here I am talking about the dicot stem. So in the dicot stem, the pericycle will be there, and that pericycle is made up of what? Sclerenchymatous fibers that gives strength to the steel. And now this is very important one. That is what the phloem, which is a living food conducting tissue, and it is composed of it is a complex tissue because it is made up of different types of cells, and one among them are fibers. And as they are associated with the phloem, we call them as what? Phloem fibers. Of course, these phloem fibers are mainly associated with the secondary phloem. Secondary phloem means what? The phloem that is formed during secondary growth is called secondary phloem, and that produces more number of fibers. And that's why the other name given for these phloem fibers are what? Bast fibers. Bast fibers, and these bast fibers are commercially useful fibers. Means what? For example, we know that jute fibers, jute fibers, hemp fibers, okay, rami fibers, flax fibers. These are all what phloem fibers are bast fibers, and they're commercially useful. Okay, and those that are present in the medulla of the roots, so these are called what? Medullary fibers. And of course, the fibers which are present in the leaves are called leaf fibers, and we find these leaf fibers in the monocot leaves. And especially, there are some fiber yielding plants are there in Liliaceae family. What are those fiber yielding plants of Liliaceae? Yucca, Dracena, Yucca, Dracena. And these fibers are obtained not from the stems of Yucca and Dracena. So the fibers are extracted from the leaves of Yucca and Dracena. And don't forget, in the leaf anatomy, you will find the vascular bundles, and vascular bundles are surrounded by a parenchymatous ring-like tissue, which is called bundle sheath parenchyma, or they are called bundle sheath cells. And to keep this vascular bundle in the same position, some extensions you will find. So in the leaves of this Yucca and Dracena, you will find some bundle sheath extensions, and the bundle sheath extensions are made up of the fibers. So as they are present in the leaves, these are called what? Leaf fibers, and they are also commercially useful fibers. And now we are familiar with coconut. The coconut fruit is drupe fruit, and it has the pericarp, and the pericarp can be differentiated into epicarp, mesocarp, and endocarp. Epicarp is leathery, mesocarp is fibrous. So, and the endocarp is stony. And that mesocarp is made up of what fibers? We can call them as what? Fruit fibers. As they're present in the fruit, we call them as what? Fruit fibers. And these fibers of coconut are called coir. So coir fibers, and this coir is also commercially useful. So it is mainly used for making mattresses. Okay, coir mattresses. So that is what the fruit fibers. These are what the extraxillary fibers. And now let us say the sclerates. The sclerates will have different shapes, and while these fibers are present in groups, the sclerates are generally present in isolated manner. So you may find here and there they are scattered. So very rarely they are present in groups. Okay, and for example, they have different shapes, and that's why we can recognize five important types of sclerites. Those which are round and look like parenchyma are called brachysclerates, or they are called stony cells, stone cells. And you find them in the pulp of guava fruit, pear fruit, and apple fruits. So the pulp will contain that, and that's why we will have some gritty feeling when we eat these fruits. Okay, and the seed coats of legumes like what peas, beans, okay, and they are very hard, and they become impervious to water due to presence of these macrosclerites. These macrosclerates are okay, like palisade cells, and they are arranged in the groups. So this is an exceptional one. So these are present in the groups just below this epidermis of the seed coat. Okay, astrosclerates are okay, branched sclerates, and they appear in the form of a star shaped. So the star shaped sclerates called astrosclerates, and these are present in the leaves of tea or tea leaves, and also in the petioles of nymphea, that is water lily. So in the tea leaves and petioles of nymphea, you will find astrosclerates. I hope you might have experienced this, or you might have observed this. So the tea comes from the tea leaves, and even after making the tea decoction, so you have to filter it, and when you filter it, what are left? So the leftover things are what sclerites. They are what these astrosclerites. And now let us say the other one in the subepidermal coverings of fasciolus, that is black gram or moong dal. So in that you will find what osteosclerates, which are bone shaped sclerates. Bone shaped sclerates are called osteosclerates, and filiform sclerates. Okay, so the filiform sclerates you will find in the leaves of Wolia, that is olive plant. Okay, so these are different types of sclerates, and wherever they are present, they provide some mechanical strength. And now let us discuss about the functions of the sclerenchyma. So you can see it provides mechanical strength to the plant organs, provides mechanical strength to the plant organ, and makes them tolerate bending, compression, and pulling due to environmental factors. Due to environmental factors. So okay. So due to presence of the sclerenchyma, so even if it bends, but it will not break. Okay, up to some limitations will be there, up to some extent. So that is what the first function. And the next one, it provides rigidity to leaves and prevents collapse during temporary wilting. In the summer season, generally, so the leaves will okay, droop, and this drooping of leaves is called what wilting, but it is not permanent wilting, it is temporary wilting, and even then it won't collapse, means what it will not become like that. That means they will not get folded. So they have still strength due to presence of the sclerenchyma. Okay, so these are the functions of the tissue sclerenchyma, and with that we have completed the simple tissues.